In the middle of a quiet afternoon in Central Park, a little girl pointed at a stranger and cried out, "Daddy, that boy looks just like me." The words froze James Whitaker in place. A wealthy man shattered by grief, he suddenly found himself staring at a truth too impossible to believe until his knees gave way beneath him. "Daddy, look, that's my brother. He looks just like me and just like you." Emily tugged at James Whitaker's hand, her pinky finger pointing toward the path in the park. It was a quiet afternoon in Central Park. Since his wife, Claire, passed away from cancer, James had poured all his energy into raising Emily on his own. Weekend walks were the way he held on to her, and his little daughter was now his entire world. James stopped, startled by her words. "What did you just say?" he asked, squinting at her. She turned to face him, her pink dress fluttering with her movement, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Emily insisted, "The boy sitting by the fountain is my brother." James turned to look. A boy, no more than 5 years old, sat huddled on the edge of a concrete bench, clutching a worn-out cardboard box to his chest. His clothes were tattered and dirty, and his shoes were nearly falling apart. But what astonished James wasn't the boy's appearance. It was his eyes, bright and deep blue, the exact same shade as Emily's. "Emily, don't say things like that," James said, trying to keep his voice calm. "You don't have a brother. You only have your mom." "No, Dad, I know," the little girl insisted, her eyes wide and serious. "That's my brother. I can feel it." James frowned. This wasn't a child's imagination. The boy's eyes. He couldn't ignore the resemblance, the shape of the boy's nose, the curve of his cheeks. There was something hauntingly familiar. His heart began to race. The boy was looking back at him, silent, cautious, but his gaze unwavering. James slowly approached the boy, Emily still holding tightly to his hand. He bent down in front of the child. "Hello," he said gently. "What's your name?" The boy held the box tightly, saying nothing. James tried again. "I'm James. This is my daughter, Emily. We're just walking through the park." The boy looked at Emily, then back at James. The boy's voice was barely a whisper. "Noah." "Noah," James repeated. "That's a nice name. Where's your mom?" Noah, the boy, hesitated, then mumbled, "At home. She's sick." James's chest tightened. He asked carefully, "Do you live far from here?" Noah looked down. "We live in a basement apartment on 43rd Street. Mom doesn't let me go far, but today she slept too long and there wasn't any food, so I came out." "Do you have a dad?" James asked, although his voice hesitated mid-sentence. Noah shook his head. "My mom said he left before I was born." James felt dizzy. He tried to shake off the thought, but something in the boy's expression made it impossible to ignore. His mind drifted back to the years gone by. 6 years ago, there was a woman who worked at his company for a short time. A kind and shy woman named Mary Carter, blonde hair, blue eyes. She had been fired under complicated circumstances, a mix-up involving accounting records that spiraled out of control. She didn't contest the decision, she just disappeared. Could it be James reached for the small backpack slung over his shoulder? Emily insisted on bringing snacks. He pulled out a pre-packaged sandwich and handed it to Noah. "Here you go," he said gently. "You must be very hungry." Noah looked at it, hesitated, then cautiously took it. He mumbled, "Thank you." James watched the boy eat slowly and quietly, as if afraid someone would take it away. There was something incredibly graceful in the way he sat, as if he were used to becoming invisible. Beside him, Emily sat cross-legged on the grass and smiled. "Hi, Noah," she said cheerfully. "I love your eyes. They look just like yours." Noah looked at her and blinked. A slight smile appeared on his lips. James's heart ached. He stood up and stepped back, trying to breathe. He glanced at Emily, then at Noah, then back again. The same eyes, the same shape of the face. The resemblance was undeniable. He reached for his phone and called his assistant. "Monica," he said, his voice tense. "I need you to find everything you can about a former employee, Mary Carter. She worked here about 6 years ago. Start with the personnel file. Anything you can find." Monica didn't ask any questions. "Yes, Mr. Whitaker, I'm on it." James hung up and looked down at the two children. Emily was currently showing Noah her stuffed rabbit and talking to him as if they had known each other for a long time. He knelt down again. "Noah," he said gently, How would you feel about coming with us for a while just to have a nice meal and make sure you're okay? Then I'll take you back to your mom." Noah stared at him for a long time. Then he nodded, hugging the sandwich and container tightly to his chest. James stood up, picked up Emily, and gently placed his hand on Noah's shoulder. He didn't know what he would find or what truth was buried in the past, but something told him that his life had changed forever. And it all began when a little girl in a pink dress pointed to the park and said words he would never forget. "Daddy, that's my brother." The elevator doors opened to reveal James's penthouse apartment on the top floor of a glass-clad tower overlooking Central Park. Noah hesitated at the threshold, clutching the torn cardboard box as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. "Come in, buddy," James said gently. "You're safe here." Emily rushed forward, her curly hair bouncing as she ran down the wide hallway, calling, "Come on, Noah, you have to see my room. It's pink and has stars on the ceiling." Noah stepped in slowly, his eyes wide as they scanned the polished floor, the towering windows, the sparkling chandelier. It was a completely different world from the cracked sidewalks and leaking roofs of his neighborhood. He followed Emily down the hallway. Still holding the box tightly against his chest, James watched them disappear into Emily's room, then walked to his home office. He sat down at his desk and opened a locked cabinet. Inside were company records, documents he hadn't touched in years. He pulled out old employee files and began flipping through each page until he found her name, Mary Carter. He stared at the file. The pinned photograph in the corner showed a young woman with blonde hair and a warm smile. She had been a receptionist for less than a year. There had been a misunderstanding regarding a customer report, a report that led to a dispute between her and a junior manager. James vaguely remembered that day. He had been tired, overwhelmed, and quickly took sides. He signed the termination papers without asking any questions. He never saw her again, but there was an email, or more than one message he hadn't replied to, marked as follow-up, then buried under contracts and board meeting agendas. She had tried to reach out to him, and now everything was in disarray. Mary Carter had left the company alone while she was pregnant. He found a recent address linked to her name through an old company emergency contact form. It was in Brooklyn, an apartment in a dilapidated building known for cheap rent and poor maintenance. James had searched for the address online and found images of cracked walls and graffiti-covered doors. A deep pit rose in his stomach. Noah had spoken the truth. His mother was sick, and she had raised him in poverty while James built skyscrapers and cared for the homeless. James leaned back in the chair, rubbing his face with both hands. Guilt clawed at him. He hadn't just forgotten her. He had pushed her away, discarded her when she needed him the most. And now there was a child, his child. He couldn't be sure, but in his heart, he had known. That night, while Emily and Noah played with puzzles on the living room floor, James made a phone call. He reached out to a discreet charity specializing in providing aid to families in distress without disclosing the donors. He gave them Mary's address. "I want to send a full grocery order," he said, "including fruits, vegetables, meat, and medicine, vitamins, hygiene products, no labels, no notes. Just deliver it quietly." "Understood," the representative replied. "It will be here tomorrow morning." He ended the call and returned to the living room. Emily had draped a blanket over 2 chairs, creating a temporary fort. She crawled inside and pulled Noah in with her, giggling. "This is the castle, and you are the prince," she declared. Noah smiled, shyly, hesitantly, but realistically. James felt a lump in his throat, the way the boy responded to kindness, the way he looked at Emily as if she were family, the way his shoulders relaxed a bit when no one spoke. He had seen all this before in himself, in those who grew up too fast. James stood at the edge of the scene, silently observing. He had to do more than just send groceries. He had to face Mary, ask her the truth, tell her he was sorry and ready for any answer she might give. The next morning, James dressed lightly while Emily and Noah were still asleep. When they woke up, he had prepared breakfast for them: pancakes, fresh strawberries, orange juice. He told Emily they were going on a little adventure. Noah looked a bit worried. Are we going far? Not too far, James said. Just to a special place. He packed a small bag for the boy, including clean clothes and a new toy that Emily insisted on giving him. As they got into the car, James's driver glanced at him through the rearview mirror, sensing the tension. Where to next? Mr. Whitaker, he asked. James hesitated for a second. My friend, he finally said. I'll give you the address on the way. He leaned back, staring out the window as the skyline changed, wealth fading into old bricks and rusty fences. His heart raced as they approached the address. Today, he will face the past. Today, he will find out if the boy beside him is truly his son. And if he is, James silently vowed he would never let him go again. The car rolled down a narrow street lined with graffiti-covered buildings and rusty fire escapes. James sat silently, watching the scenery shift from sleek glass towers to crumbling bricks and worn sidewalks. He had been through neighborhoods like this before, but today it felt so personal. When they arrived, he stepped out with Noah by his side. The boy clutched his small bag tightly, his eyes scanning the peeling paint and dark hallways. James took a deep breath and knocked on the faded green door of apartment 4B. The sound of footsteps approaches. The door creaks open. Mary. Her eyes widen in disbelief. Her hair is tied up in an old bun, her face pale and thinner, yet she still retains the quiet charm that James recognizes immediately. Noah. She gasps. The boy rushes into her arms. Mom Mary hugs the boy tightly, then looks up. Her voice is icy. James, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you, he says gently. Emily, your father's daughter, has seen Noah. She says he is her brother. I don't believe it, but I need to know the truth. Mary's jaw clenches. You are not allowed to ask that question. Not after what you did. Please, James says. Give me a few minutes. She holds Noah tightly, her voice trembling. I was pregnant. I tried to tell you. I emailed, called, but no one responded. Then I was fired. I had nothing. James looks stunned. Mary, I never knew. I swear. She smiles bitterly. Of course not. You were too busy to care. I am 24 and terrified. Then I had Noah, and I raised him alone. James's throat tightens. I'm sorry. I should have asked. I was looking for you. Mary shakes her head. You can't show up now and play the savior. Noah has a life. No, a lot, but it's ours. He swallows hard. Mary, is he my son? She hesitates. Then, with a tear rolling down her cheek, she nods. Yes, but I don't want your money. I just want to protect him. James kneels beside her. I'm not here to take him away. I just want to help. Mary's eyes are wary. I don't know if I can forgive you. I understand, but let me try. He reaches into his coat and places an envelope on the counter. This is not an apology. This is for Noah. Rent, medicine, food. I'll be back tomorrow. Mary picks up the envelope, her fingers trembling. The hardness in her gaze softens slightly. James gently adds, Will you let me get a DNA test to be sure? She hesitates again, then nods. Okay, but no promises. James stands up. That's all I'm asking. He looks at Noah, who is holding his mother's hand but staring at James with cautious curiosity. James reaches out, gently touching Noah's shoulder. I'll see you soon. Okay. Noah nodded slightly, then, without warning, stepped forward and hugged James's leg for a moment. Mary said nothing. As James walked down the hallway, his heart felt heavier than ever. He sensed something different rising within him. Hope. The envelope trembled in James's hand as he stood in the office, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. He had read it 3 times, but the words still hit hard like a wave. The probability of fatherhood is 99.98%. Noah is his son. He exhaled slowly, then looked at the picture on his desk, Emily grinning widely in her pink dress. He picked up the phone. 2 hours later, Noah stood at the threshold of James's penthouse apartment, not as a guest, but as his family. Emily ran to him. Noah, you're back. You really are my brother now. She excitedly pulled him into the living room. This is your room now. Or we could build another fort. James quietly observed them, a rare peace settling in his chest. But that moment didn't last long. His phone kept vibrating. The news had spread. The millionaire has a secret love child. James Whitaker's hidden past was exposed. The Whitaker heir was found in Brooklyn. Paparazzi surrounded his building. His office was overwhelmed. The board demanded an emergency call. "You should handle this privately," Leonard Chase said, his tone sharp. "This is disastrous. The stocks are plummeting." "This is not a scandal," James replied. "That is my son. You are jeopardizing our reputation." Another added. James's voice sharpened. "If being a father is a risk, perhaps we need to rethink what we stand for." He ended the call and stared out the window. Back inside, Noah was quiet, polite, but withdrawn. He sat alone during the meal, taciturn and often staring at the door, waiting for a mother who wouldn't come tonight. James had seen it all. Money can build safety, but it can't build trust. It can't build love. That night, he tried something different. "Noah," he gently said, kneeling beside him, "how about we make pizza tonight? Just us. You, me, and Emily." Noah blinked. "Make it." James nodded enthusiastically. Emily clapped. "I want pepperoni flowers too." They kneaded the dough, made a mess with flour, and decorated the pizza with olive smiles. For the first time, laughter filled the kitchen. The penthouse felt like home. After dinner, James brought out a red bike just like Emily's. "This is for you," he gently said. "Now you and your sister are a team." Noah stared at it, then looked at James. He didn't say anything, but nodded, his lips curling into the smallest real smile that James had ever seen. On the other side of the city, Mary sat on the couch, scrolling through articles. Pictures of James with Noah were everywhere. Her chest tightened. He looked so sincere. But was he really going to change? Her phone rang. James Whitaker. "Mary, I know this is too much, but I want to do this right for Noah and for you. Come visit me. No pressure. Let's figure this out together." She read and reread it, then put the phone down. She recalled the nights of rocking Noah to sleep, wondering if she had made the right choice by keeping him away from her. But now that man, who had broken her heart, was facing the media storm, had publicly accepted Noah, and was standing firm. Perhaps, just perhaps, in the penthouse apartment, Noah and Emily curled up under a blanket, a cartoon flickering in front of them. Noah's head gently rested on Emily's shoulder. James stepped out onto the balcony and stood in the cool night air. He had failed before, but he would not fail again. Tomorrow, Mary would come, and he would be ready. Mary stepped out of the elevator, her hands tightly gripping her handbag. The door of the penthouse apartment opened, revealing warmth and light inside. Laughter echoed from the living room. She hesitated. James greeted her with a gentle smile. "Mary," he said, "thank you for coming." She nodded stiffly. "I'm here for Noah." James stepped aside, allowing her in without saying another word. Noah lay sprawled on the floor next to Emily, both children surrounded by puzzle pieces and crayons. He looked up, his face lighting up. "Mom," he called and ran into her arms. Mary knelt down and hugged him tightly. "Are you okay, sweetie?" she asked. "I like it here," he said. "Emily is so funny. We're drawing planets." Mary smiled lightly, but her gaze shifted toward James, wary. As the kids played, James quietly handed her a cup of tea and gestured toward the seating area. "Can we talk?" She sat down, still on guard. "I've arranged everything." James began, maintaining a calm tone. "For your medical treatment, I spoke with a doctor at the Ridgeway Center. You will have access to everything you need at no cost." Mary stiffened. "I don't want your charity." "I know," he said gently. "This isn't charity. It's the least I can do. For what I took from you." She looked away, silent. He continued, "I also spoke with a partner company. They are looking to hire communication staff. If you're interested, it's yours. No obligations." Mary raised an eyebrow. "So now I owe you something too." "No," James said. "You don't owe me anything. I just want to help. You deserve a life that's not just about surviving." Mary stared at him, her expression conflicted. She had thought this meeting would be all fake, just empty words. But instead, he was here, not begging for her forgiveness, just quietly trying to fix what was broken. That night, while she watched Noah playing with Emily, something remarkable happened. Noah was building a tower with the blocks. It toppled over and Emily giggled. James bent down to help him rebuild it. "Do you want to try again?" he asked. Noah looked up and, without thinking, softly replied, "Okay." "Dad." James was speechless. Mary felt the same. Noah continued stacking the blocks, unaware of the moment he had created. James swallowed hard. He said nothing, but his eyes met Mary's across the room, sparkling with unhidden emotions. Mary said nothing. She just watched them, her heart aching. The next morning, as she packed to leave, she saw a small box placed on the bedside table along with a note. She opened it. Inside was an exquisite silver necklace with a pendant, a round plate engraved with the names of the two, Noah and Emily. The note read, "So, always remember that no matter what happens between us, we will always be a family because of them." Her hands trembled as she closed the box. She walked into the kitchen where James was preparing breakfast with the kids. She cleared her throat. "James," she said softly, "I heard about my mom's medical bill. The one that was paid last week." James looked up, surprised I didn't tell you she was sick. Mary said, "But you found out and helped." James said, "I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I just wanted to help her get better." Mary's voice choked. "You could have told me." He looked at her and simply said, "This isn't about you. It's about what she means to you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Why are you doing all this? Because I disappointed you once," James said, "and I will spend the rest of my life trying not to disappoint you again." Mary stood still for a long time, then slowly nodded. "Noah can stay here for a while. He seems happy. He deserves that. And what about you? He seems happy. He deserves it." "What about you?" James gently asked. "I still don't know," she replied honestly, "but I'm willing to give you a chance to show me." James smiled, not pushing further. That night, as she was leaving, Noah ran to the door and hugged her tightly. "You'll be okay." "Mom," the boy said, "now we are a team." She always kissed his forehead. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Mary held the necklace in her hand, her fingers gliding over the names. Perhaps, just perhaps, the healing process had begun. Noah's first day of school was filled with a mix of excitement and quiet fear. Emily, proudly wearing her pink backpack, held his hand tightly as they walked into the classroom. The little girl chatted nonstop, completely unfazed by the crowd of new faces. However, Noah felt like everyone was looking at him. Whispers began before the bell rang. Some kids noticed that the boy's shoes were a bit worn out and his backpack was simpler. A boy sneered, "Hey, isn't that the kid from the news, the kid who lives in the slums?" A few others giggled. Noah's shoulders stiffened. He looked down, silent. Emily turned around, her eyes bright. She stood right in front of the boy, her bare fists clenched. "You stop it," she said firmly, her voice louder than usual for a 3-year-old. "Noah is my brother. He's the best, and you are just mean." The whole class fell silent. Noah looked up at her, stunned. Emily turned back and took his hand again, smiling as if nothing had happened. From that moment, the teasing disappeared, and Noah found a quiet sense of safety next to her. At home, James and Mary worked together to help Noah through the transition. They sat at the dinner table in the evenings to review homework. On weekends, they took the kids to the park, where Emily insisted everyone go on the carousel together. James prepared snacks, and Mary brought juice. And for the first time in many years, they moved as one cohesive unit. Some moments, though small, were profoundly quiet, like when James handed Mary a sweater on a chilly afternoon, or when she adjusted his tie before a school event without thinking. The rhythm of co-parenting brought a sense of familiarity, and the familiarity gradually became warmer. Then came the parent-teacher night. The classroom was decorated with crayon drawings. Parents gathered in groups. James stood next to Mary, both listening intently to Noah's teacher when a sharply dressed woman in high heels approached with a condescending tone. "I suppose it must be strange for someone like you to be here," the woman said, directing her smile at Mary with a patronizing look. "You know, not everyone is fit for schools like this." Mary stiffened. James stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "Excuse me." The woman blinked, clearly taken aback. "Of course, I didn't mean to offend. It's just that, some people come from very different backgrounds." James placed a protective hand on Mary's back. "Mary is the mother of my son. She raised him with strength and love in impossible conditions, and I respect her more than anyone else in this room." The woman hesitated, then turned away without saying another word. Mary stood still for a moment, her eyes shining. "You don't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did," James replied, "because it's the truth." A few days later, James hosted a family picnic in Central Park. He had prepared a basket full of homemade sandwiches, apple slices, and juice boxes. They spread a blanket under a wide tree. Emily and Noah chased each other on the grass while James and Mary laughed heartily from the sidelines. James threw a ball to Noah, who caught it with a victorious smile. Emily clapped and cheered, twirling around. Mary, sitting nearby, couldn't help but smile. As the sun began to set, Emily walked back. Her cheeks flushed. She climbed onto Mary's lap, wrapping her tiny arms around her, and said, "My mom is gone, but you are really kind. Can you be a mom to me too?" Mary held her breath. She looked down at the child in her arms, innocent, warm, and sincere. "I remember my mom," Emily whispered, "but I like you as my mom." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. She hugged Emily tightly, her heart aching in a way she hadn't expected. That evening, as they packed up to leave, Mary walked beside James, quieter than usual. He glanced at her. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly. She said, "I've been thinking about what is best for Noah and Emily." James listened patiently. "I want to get closer," she said. "Maybe not here, but close enough for the kids to be together. That way, things will be easier." James smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." They walked in silence for a while before Mary added, "And maybe we can talk more about the past, about everything." James looked at her, the wind rustling the trees around them. "I like that." Together, they moved forward, not as two people separated by time and mistakes, but as two parents slowly finding trust, healing, and something like hope. Weeks passed quietly, beautifully, in the rhythm of shared breakfasts and bedtime stories. James and Mary found a new closeness, not out of obligation, but out of trust. They spoke sincerely, laughed more, and raised their two children, who, in their innocence, had mended what was once broken. Noah and Emily were now inseparable. They called each other siblings, as if they always had been. One afternoon, Mary saw them hunched over a giant piece of paper, paintbrushes in hand. "What are you all doing?" she asked, kneeling down beside them. Emily beamed. "Our family portrait. It's you and Dad and Noah and me, and even Mr. Snuggles." Mary smiled, her eyes softening at the colorful, chaotic masterpiece. That night, James hung the painting in the hallway. "This painting belongs here," he said, as their relationship deepened. Caution still lingered. One evening, James turned to Mary while drinking coffee. "I've been thinking, maybe we should all live together." Mary hesitated. "James, I know it's a lot," he quickly added. "I really appreciate it," she said gently, "but I've fought hard to gain my independence. I'm not ready to give that up." James nodded. "I understand." She smiled. "But if the offer to help with the bakery still stands." "It does," he said. "Absolutely." He found a cozy spot near the kids' school, quietly handled the paperwork, and let Mary take the lead. She chose the name, menu, and tiles. What she didn't know was what James had named the shop behind the scenes. At the grand opening, balloons floated, neighbors lined up, and Noah and Emily handed out cookies in matching aprons. Mary stepped outside and looked up. The sign read, "Lucia's Dream." She was speechless. Lucia, her late mother's name, who believed in her baking craft and wanted nothing more than to see her daughter smile again. Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. James stepped beside her. He wanted to honor her and her mother. Mary could only nod, moved beyond words. That night, after the guests had left and the kids were dozing on the bakery bench, something unexpected happened. Noah had a fever. The fever escalated quickly. Mary panicked. James remained calm, helping to cool his skin, whispering soothing words. They stayed by his side all night. Mary held Noah's hand while James wrapped his arms around her. Together, they waited. Just before dawn, Noah stirred, his eyes wide open. "Are you both staying? We're right here, buddy." James said. Noah reached out, grasping both their hands. He wanted them to stay together. He wanted us to be a family. They said nothing. They just looked at each other. Something quiet passed between them. Then, after the fever broke and Noah fell asleep again, Mary leaned against James. I was so scared, she whispered, to trust again. But now, I see you've changed. I had to, James said. For him. For you. For us. Mary closed her eyes. Then maybe we can try again slowly, James whispered and took her hand. A little bit each day. As the morning light flooded over the bakery sign, Lucia's dream. It shone gently like a promise. Inside, a family was starting anew, whole, healing, and ultimately, at peace. A year later, the Whitaker family had settled into a joyful peace, away from the noise and glare of the city. Now they lived in a warm, sunlit home in the tree-lined suburbs of New York. The yard was always cluttered with toys, chalk drawings, and laughter. A white picket fence surrounded the garden where Emily had planted sunflowers, and Noah tended a small patch of tomatoes, insisting he wanted to grow real food, like in the bakery. Mary's bakery. Lucia's dream was thriving. Every morning, locals lined up to buy her famous waffles and lemon tarts. The walls of the shop were now covered with children's artwork from the neighborhood, including many pieces by Emily and Noah, who often spent afternoons there doing homework and sneaking extra cookies. James had stepped away from his leadership position in his empire. He still attended important meetings, but his schedule now revolved around picking up the kids from school, bedtime stories, and spontaneous dance parties in the kitchen. Noah and Emily had become inseparable. They built forts, raced bikes on the sidewalk, and painted murals in the garage. For them, there had never been anything before, only this beautiful present, where they simply were siblings, heart and soul. On a golden September afternoon, James and Mary hosted a small party in their backyard. The outdoor table was adorned with wildflowers, and soft music played from a speaker placed on the porch. Friends from the bakery, a few neighbors, and family gathered to celebrate the day everything changed, the day everyone became a family. James baked while Mary brought out her signature strawberry cake. Emily danced in her pink ballet dress while Noah helped set the table, carefully arranging the plates. As the sun dipped lower, on the horizon, James gently tapped his glass. "Thank you all for being here," he said. "A year ago, I had no idea that my life was about to change forever, but it happened in the best way possible. And today, I want to honor the heart of our home, our family." Mary smiled beside him, her eyes sparkling. Just then, Noah and Emily ran up. "We have a surprise," Emily shouted. They handed their parents a large piece of paper that was carefully folded. When James opened it, his breath caught in his chest. It was a drawing with colorful, emotional pencil strokes, 4 figures holding hands under the sunset. Above them was the trembling inscription, "Our family forever." Mary's hand found James's, and their eyes met. Without needing any words, James leaned down, kissing the tops of each child's head, then turned to Mary. "I have something I want to give you," he said gently. He took out a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was an exquisite silver ring engraved with 4 names: James, Mary, Noah, Emily. He spoke with deep emotion. "This is not a proposal. This is a promise that I will always be here for all of you, no matter what happens." Mary's eyes welled with tears. She slipped the ring onto her finger, looking directly into his eyes. "Then I promise the same." As the sun set over the yard, the whole family sat together on the porch swing. The children leaned against their parents, eyes drooping from a long day. Laughter echoed as fireflies flickered in the garden. James looked around, his heart full of joy. "We may have lost each other once," he said, "but we will never lose each other again." Mary nodded, her head resting on his shoulder. And then the story ended, not with grand gestures, but with something much greater. A complete family, forgiven and unbreakable. Under the fading light of the gentle sky, they simply held on to each other out of love. True love, always finding a way home. This heartwarming story reminds us that love, loss, and the deep longing for connection can bring unexpected truths to light. Through the innocent words of a child and the quiet ache of a grieving father, we witness the healing power of honesty and family. James's journey teaches us that even when life feels unbearably broken, a single moment, a voice, a face, a truth can change everything. If this story touched your heart, let's show our support for James as he bravely steps into a new chapter of fatherhood, filled with renewed hope and deeper bonds. What would you do if your past came walking back in the form of a child you never knew you had? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear them. And if you believe in the power of stories to heal, to connect, and to inspire, don't forget to subscribe to Touching Tales Hub. Your support helps us continue sharing these real, raw, and beautiful moments that stay with us long after the story ends.